it is clear that Israel is calling the shots for a war with Iran. We have two conflicting stories from major news outlets. What they have in common is that it's Netanyahu who continues to make the decisions here, not President Trump. Now, before we get excited, it's worth remembering that the last time that Trump and Netanyahu promised not to bomb Iran, they turned around and did it. So we can't pretend that they're not bluffing this time. It would be a fool me twice situation on our part. Here's what the major reports are, and then we're going to break them down. The New York Times is reporting that Netanyahu has now asked Trump not to bomb Iran. The reporting is that Israel is not ready to withstand the retaliation that inevitably would come from Iran. Now, this comes right after the Washington Post reported this. They say that a few weeks ago, Israel sent a delegation to Russia to assure Iran that Israel does not intend to strike unless they are struck first. On its face, that sounds like reasonable de-escalation, but it's not, because at the very same moment, Netanyahu was in Washington prompting President Trump to strike Iran. So you see what's happening here. Israel is pretending that they won't initiate the war on its own so long as they can get the U.S. to do it for them. Now, why would Israel bother with this trickery? Mostly for the PR of it. Because of Gaza, they realize that they can't be seen as the continual aggressors, but that's clearly what they want. Here's how the Post puts it, that they want to desire to avoid being perceived as escalating tensions. Not that they don't want to escalate. They don't want the perception. So if you can get your bitch, the United States, to do it for you, you're in the clear, right? But they really do want to escalate those tensions. Now, is Iran falling for this? According to the Post, they are not. Iranian officials responded positively to this Israeli outreach, but they are wary. Obviously, Iran believed that if the Israeli assurances were genuine, they leave open the possibility that the U.S. would carry out attacks on Iran as part of a campaign between these two allies. So they know that these two, and by these two, it's the U.S. and Israel, are not to be trusted.
Yeah. Let's bring in Larry Johnson, former CIA intelligence officer, now to dissect all of this. Great to see you, Larry. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, guys. Hey, let me just add. Actually, I have a bearskin hoodie, and I've got 2 pairs of bearskin pants. They do work as advertised. So
fantastic! Thank you so much.
Do they ward off wolves? That's the real question.
Well, that's why I carry a sidearm. I'd recommend carrying, a nice 45 caliber, a 1911.
Yeah, when you're walking. Yeah, exactly. I mean, these deer also come after you crazy too with the
and the elk.
Hey, yesterday I just want to point out, Larry, yesterday speaking to hearing from Colonel Douglas McGregor, he said, when asked about the intelligence back and forth, what's going on with these players behind the scenes, Israel getting busted and all of this on the streets of Iran, Colonel McGregor said, I'm not plugged into the intelligence community. There's one person that I trust, and that's Larry Johnson. If you want to get to the bottom of that, Larry Johnson is your guy. So guess what? Larry Johnson is on the show today. So Larry, you hear the New York Times, the Washington Post, with their stories. I got off the phone about 20 minutes ago from a source who told me that Israel got busted, and Putin was furious about this. It was really the behind-the-scenes work of Putin and some of the Middle East allies that actually stopped this from happening. What do you know?
Well, I think that's definitely part of the story. Let's go back to December 28th, Sunday, when Donald Trump's meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky. That day, an economic operation was launched, an economic attack on Iran that fell a dramatic fall in the price of their currency. And the Iranian economy is small enough that an organization like the CIA working with Israel can basically spend some time in advance, buy up a large number of the currency of Iran, and then when you dump it on the market and sell it, the price goes through the floor. That sparked legitimate economic protests. But this was programmed by I believe by the CIA and by Mossad to start the fire and then bring in the kindling and the gasoline to pour on it. And that kindling and gasoline came from a variety of sources. You've got Kurds, ethnic Kurds that are in Iran, and they've got ties across border. They were being paid to commit acts of violence. They were given Starlink terminals so that they could be in communication with foreign assets that were directing them. Similarly, with the group called the MEK, the Mujahideen al-Khalq, they were designated by the United States as a terrorist group in 1997. Even though that group had existed since 1964, they were described as a Marxist Islamist group that carried out acts of violence against U.S. citizens and against Iranian citizens, both under the Shah and under the Ayatollah. Well, in 2004, the CIA lined them up, put them in a camp, trained them in Albania, and started using them to carry out terrorist attacks in Iran. And then in 2012, we finally took them off the terrorist list because they're no longer terrorists, they're our guys. And then out in in eastern Iran, you've got the Baluchis in Baluchistan. And they've had a long-term relationship with the CIA. I know that firsthand from one of my buddies back in 1980 when we were planning the rescue operation to try to free the U.S. diplomats that had been taken hostage at the embassy. One of the means of communications was from rugs that were coming from Baluchistan to a rug shop in Bethesda, Maryland, right behind my house on Wisconsin Avenue. It was called Parvizian. And the messages were hidden in those rugs. So what I'm saying is there's not just one ethnic group. You got a variety of ethnic groups that have had ties to these to foreign intelligence. They inflamed the situation. And the plan, I believe now, watching what has happened, the plan was that the government was going to be put into such a degree of chaos that when we launched the military strikes yesterday, then that would have brought the whole house down. Well, it failed. The operation to destabilize Iran started collapsing last Friday. The Iranian security forces, they discovered the Starlink terminals. Russia and China were helping them with electronic warfare countermeasures to block those. And as they started blocking those, the people stopped showing up in the streets. And the IRGC and the Bajis, they started cracking down on the ones who were carrying out violence against Iranians. So what happened yesterday was also, it was exacerbated by that Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Turkey both told the United States, you're not flying over our territory to do this. And I think part of that was pressure that the Russians was bringing on to all of them. Because what Russia knows is that it's now invested heavily in Iran, as is China. They're not going to let the United States attack Iran and just try to destroy it. Now, the other element that's at play here is that 45% of the daily production of oil in the world comes out of the Persian Gulf. Iran can close the Strait of Hormuz in a heartbeat. Once that's closed, all of a sudden, 45% of the oil that's out in the world no longer there. What does that do to the price of oil? It sends it into into space. Gosh. And it would be good for Russia because now the price of oil is $150 a barrel, but it's going to have a devastating impact on other economies, both in causing inflation and forcing industries to shut down. So this very complex picture, but this simplistic crap that was being spun in the West that all we got to do is put enough pressure and the Ayatollah is going to flee to Moscow. Nonsense.
This episode is brought to you by Rumble Premium, the home of free speech and exclusive content from the videos that matter. With Rumble Premium, you get ad-free viewing, access to exclusive shows, and premium features across the platform. We're talking about Steven Crowder's Mug Club, Tim Pool's Timcast, Russell Brand's Raw Commentary, and of course, Redacted, plus tons of other bold creators that you won't find anywhere else. Whether it's breaking news, real talk, or the content that challenges the narrative, Rumble Premium puts you in the front row. Support creators who actually say what they mean in a place that they can say it and mean what they say? Go to rumble.com/premium/redacted to join today. One more time, that's rumble.com/premium/redacted, because truth should not come with a filter. Russia did prop up Syria and the Assad government for so long until they just couldn't do it anymore. So is this the delicate balance by which Iran hangs in the fate of a possible Assad government? What's the difference here?
Yeah, the difference is Bashar al-Assad didn't want to listen. You know, the Russians said, "Hey, we'll help you. Let us come in and assist."
Yeah.
And Assad said, you know, you're not old enough to remember, Natalie, but in the 60s, there was this television commercial for Excedrin. And as part of it, there was a mother talking to her daughter, and the daughter would go, "Mother, please, I'd rather do it myself." Well, that was Syria, okay? They told Mother Russia, "We'd rather do it ourselves." Well, that didn't turn out so well. Iran, in this case, they had actually told Russia something similar prior to the 12-day war in June. Russia had offered a military alliance, and the Iranians said, no, we'd rather do it on our own. On June 25th, when that war came to an end, that brief conflict, Iran went back to Russia and said, hey, guys, that offer you made, that sounded really good. Let's do that. And so what you've had since then is extensive cooperation between Russia and China. So Iran is actually in a much stronger position now than it was, say, on June 12th of 2025.
Now, can I ask you, Lindsey Graham took to X and said, this idea that our Arab allies have intervened on behalf of Iran is beyond disturbing. Now, when something disturbs him, I usually am for it. That's my general rule. But is he thwarting something? Does Lindsey Graham know anything? Or do we have to worry about what this bloodthirsty demon wants to happen?
Yeah, no, I think it actually corroborates the other press reports you guys were citing at the outset, that in fact these Arab nations did tell Trump, "Hey, you can't use our airspace. You're not going to do this." One of the things that both China and Russia have brokered in the course of the last 2 years was a new alliance between Iran and Saudi Arabia. You know, previously, the Saudis were being used by the United States as a means to attack Iran, and the proxy war was being fought out in Yemen. But thanks to the intervention of Moscow and Beijing, you now have Iran. You know, the defense minister from Iran has visited Saudi Arabia, vice versa. President Pezeshkian has met with MBS, Mohammed bin Salman. So they recognize they are not enemies as they were in the past. So, and the Saudis also, I think, are looking at it very practically. They are the largest producer in the world. They do like 10.4 million barrels of oil per day. Russia does 10.3 million barrels of oil per day. And if the Strait of Hormuz is closed, you know, Saudi Arabia's got taking some significant economic losses over that. They don't want that. And I think they recognize Iran now is in a stronger position than it was in June to fight back decisively. And I think they've made it clear. We'll close those straits in a heartbeat.
From an intelligence perspective, what are you hearing that Israel would do next? Because we heard reports today, who knows if there's any truth to this being tied to some sort of a nuclear test at Dimona inside of Israel. We all pretend that Israel doesn't have a nuclear arsenal because you're not allowed to.
Dimona is what they told JFK was a textile factory.
Yeah. So there's reports of an earthquake from possible nuclear testing. I don't know if this is saber rattling on Israel's part. I don't know. But what are you hearing from an intelligence perspective that Israel would do next? I mean, if the United States and Israel cannot stop hypersonic missiles coming into Israel, and Russia is saying don't even think about it, are we at a stalemate here?
No, because I think we're ultimately still going to attack. We are so gaslit in the West about Iran. I was on, and I'll tell you off air who it was, but I was in a conference call on Tuesday with a retired U.S. general, very respected, well-respected, knowledgeable guy. And he started describing why we needed to, why Iran had to be taken out, because it's killed thousands of Americans. So I started doing the research. The Iranian government, since 1979, the Iranian government is not identified as having killed one American. The Iranian government. Now, Iranian proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, they have killed, in terms of civilians, wait for it, the total number of civilians killed by these Iranian proxies, 100, less than 100. The number of soldiers, U.S. soldiers killed by proxies in Iraq in particular, is 1,000, less than 1,000. So what we're looking at total from Iranian terrorism over the years, less than 2,000 actual American fatalities. Now look at it from the Iranian standpoint. It was the U.S. that went to Saddam Hussein and said, hey, buddy, we'll provide you with all those precursor chemicals you need to make mustard gas. He did, and he killed at least 500,000 Iranians. So when you're weighing the total in terms of who's been killing more of the other side, it is the United States that's got the most blood on its hands, not Iran. And yet, we persist with this lie that Iran is a terrorist state. I challenge anybody, show me the numbers. I'm born and raised in Missouri. Show me state. Show me the actual numbers. Because in terms of attacks on Americans, what Iran has done, what those groups that they've supported, they've attacked military targets. And look, I'm not saying that I'm supported their attack on the Marines like at the Marine barrack in Lebanon. But when you're wearing a uniform and you get to carry guns, that's called war. And even if it's an unconventional warfare, you're still a legitimate target. It's not like carrying a bomb into a pizza restaurant and blowing up a bunch of civilians.
Absolutely. And we have to, if we're doing this calculation of lives, we then have to calculate how a retaliation from Iran would then cost American lives as well. And it's not just civilian lives, because
all these bases there, right? So how many?
Right,
I mean, how many? As you've said multiple times on our show over the years, I mean, these, as President Biden even said, it's not a matter of if they get attacked, it's a matter of when, because they know it. They want to use these Americans as cannon fodder in these bases that are all throughout the region. Just put them there, wait for them to be attacked, and then we can use that as a false flag to go in.
Yeah, and notice that Iran did not, the only base it attacked, and that was sort of a coordinated kabuki theater with the United States on June 24th, when they did launch missiles and they took out a satellite system at Al Udeid Air Force Base. Al Udeid is the main base, but there are 8 other bases, including a naval facility in Bahrain, that we didn't touch, that the Iranians didn't touch. So Iran, the big difference now is that Iran is ready to respond and retaliate in a very forceful way. There was a dispute, an argument within the Iranian government. They felt that they should have continued pressing forward. Now, this comes back into your original question: what's Israel up to? The worst case is Israel faced with an existential threat, where they're about to see their entire society collapse, would be tempted to use a nuclear weapon. Yes, but that comes at a potential very high cost when you've got countries such as North Korea and Pakistan, who are also nuclear powers, threatening to retaliate if Iran is nuked. So it's a very dangerous situation. And what's unfortunate is Donald Trump's in a position where he could actually be a leader in making peace, bringing Iran back into the world, a civilized world, but he's not doing that.
Yeah. And I spoke to a source inside of Tel Aviv yesterday who said, we can't stop. Well, they're going to throw everything they have at us here in Tel Aviv. They're going to destroy us, and we can't stop it. And the Iron Dome, this source said, the Iron Dome is essentially a joke against hypersonic missiles, of course. So we know that that's the case. So don't poke the bear at this stage. Larry Johnson, always great to see you.
Well, can I just, before we let him go, he says, oh, we will attack. You did say that, right?
Yeah.
We may not be doing it this time because of these deterrents, but can you finish that, please?
Yeah, well, identify for me the voices in the U.S. Congress, either senators or Congress members of the House of Representatives, or any leading pundits that are allowed on the television networks that are saying, hey, Iran's not our enemy. We need to find a way to accommodate and work with them. No, it's just the opposite. They are constantly being portrayed as the enemy, as somebody we've got to stop at any cost. And so that's why I say we're going to attack them. They're going to look for the next excuse. But the way to tell if we're going to back off is if this current deployment, because you got another aircraft carrier task force group headed to the Persian Gulf or the Indian Ocean. If that's called off and turned around, then I say, okay, we're backing off. But I don't see that happening. So if we see the continued buildup, and if the military forces that were evacuated yesterday are not sent back to those bases, then you'll know that we're paying lip service to peace because we're going to go to war.
And we're hanging in the balance. Thank you so much for that assessment. I didn't like hearing it, but I appreciate it. Yeah.
It's coming. It's coming.
Yeah.
Larry, always great to see you. Thank you so much, as always.
All right, guys. Thanks so much.
Really appreciate it.